Hi guys, how's it going? David O'Sullivan here, and in this video I'm going to be giving you my review of Swallows and Amazons. Now Swallows and Amazons is the second adaptation of the book of the same name. If you don't know what the story is really about, it's basically about this group of kids, this family with these four brothers and sisters. They go off to the Lake District on holiday, and it's about them having this adventure, going off on a boat, discovering this island, and then they meet these other two girls who call themselves the Amazons, and then they call themselves the Swallows, the family of these brothers and sisters, and they have this kind of conflict sort of, and then there's this other storyline with Rafe Spall's character as well, which they added in. I wasn't really that interested in seeing this film. I really wasn't bothered about seeing it at all. I mean, I didn't think it looked like it was going to be a bad film or anything. I just didn't really have any real interest or desire to see this film. I wasn't really bothered at all, really, but I thought, you know what, why not? I'll just check it out, and it's kind of what I expected. It wasn't a bad film, but it wasn't great by any means either. It was adequate, and it was perfectly fine. It was an okay film, but it wasn't anything special, nor was it a bad film either. It was alright. There were a lot of things that I liked about this film though, namely the performances by the cast. Majority of the performances were really good, and the acting on the most part was convincing and was believable. There were times when it was like, oh, that feels a little bit like an actor reading a scripted line, but for the most part the acting was really good, and especially the young kids as well, because it's primarily following the kids in the story. The performances by all the kids were good for the most part. Like I said, sometimes it was a little bit like actors reading a scripted line, but for the most part it was convincing, it was believable. And also the storyline involving Rafe Spall's character that was added in there. I'm not sure this was in the book or not, I don't think it is. I haven't read the book, but from what I've heard they added this in. But I'm glad they did, because I think Rafe Spall's character and his storyline added something extra to the film. I think if it wasn't for that storyline, if that was taken out, there wouldn't be a whole lot to the film, and it might have gotten a little boring, because I did like all the stuff with the kids and that, but I just don't think that was enough to make up a whole film. So I'm glad they introduced this Rafe Spall character and this other separate storyline they kept cutting back to. Every now and then they would cut from the kids back to Rafe Spall's storyline and then back and forth, but I'm glad his storyline was in there, because like I said, I think it added something extra to the story, an extra element of kind of like intrigue and kind of like drama in a sense. So there was a little bit more going on there, and I think Rafe Spall was really good. And yeah, so the performances all round were good, and I think this film would have been as good if the performances were bad. If the acting was bad, if the kids weren't very good, I think it would have really fallen flat, but luckily they were all really good. And also I really liked how this film felt like a kind of throwback to kind of like the classic kind of children's films of the 50s. I mean, it's not like an amazing film or anything, but it was refreshing that it felt like just a nice, normal children's film. There's like no swearing, no violence, nothing like that. It felt very much like a throwback to a kind of classic film from the 50s in a sense. And I actually really like that, because like I said, it was refreshing. It's rare you get a children's film or any kind of film like this nowadays, and it really felt like you're watching a film from another time. It had kind of like a Railway Children kind of vibe to it, and also kind of like a Chronicles of Narnia, Peter Pan kind of vibe to it, with these like kind of like kids that there's no kind of fantastical element or anything, but with the kind of kids that are going off on like an adventure and stuff, it had that kind of vibe to it. Even though I don't think it was a great film, I really liked how it felt like a kind of throwback to the classic films and the classic children's films. It felt very much in that kind of spirit and that kind of vein, so that I liked. And also one of the biggest positives I can give this film is the cinematography. Although I didn't love the film itself, I loved the look of it. It was really well shot. It was just beautifully shot. It was just some gorgeous, stunning shots in this film, and I just really loved the whole look of it. It was shot so well, and it was gorgeous just to look at, how the shots of them when they go into the Lake District, and these bright, colourful, vivid shots of kind of like the bright green countryside and the lakes and that, and it just looked so beautiful how it was all shot. I go to the Lake District quite a lot, so we go there quite often sometimes on holidays too, and I just loved how the whole look of the film and how it was all shot and how it was all cut together. It was just really nice to look at, and it was just done really well from a technical point of view. However, I do have some negatives as well with this film. Unfortunately, although I liked that it felt like a nice kind of refreshing throwback to kind of the children's films of the 50s, I'd have preferred if this film had a little bit more of an edge to it, or if it had a little bit kind of more kind of originality to it. It kind of does what it says on the tin. Like, if you've seen the trailer, the film is pretty much what you'd expect from the trailer. Like, it doesn't do anything radically different or adventurous, really. I preferred if it kind of pushed the boundaries a bit more, if it kind of tried to do something a little bit more kind of different, unique or original. It kind of doesn't really, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. I like that it was quite simple. It was quite elegant in its simplicity, but at the same time, there wasn't a whole lot to it. I preferred if it had a little bit more to it, had a little bit of an edge, or a little bit more kind of, I don't know, it was nice, it was, refreshing, it was simple, it was elegant, but there wasn't a whole lot more to it than that. And also, I would prefer if it had a little bit more depth and drama to it as well. I know this is just meant to be a nice, kind of simple, kids film, but I would prefer if there was a little bit more of a kind of dramatic edge to it. Like, it tried to be dramatic at times, like I said, with this whole storyline with Rafe Spall's character and kind of the intrigue going on with him and his kind of like ambiguous character, but when it tried to be dramatic, it kind of fell flat a bit. It tried to be dramatic, but it didn't really work as well as it could have done. I preferred if there was a little bit more of depth and drama to it. Like I said, I did like the film. I did think it was alright, and I think it was done relatively well, but I think it could have had a little bit more to it. It could have gone a little bit further. It could have had a little bit more depth. It could have had more drama, and that would have really taken it to the next level, but unfortunately, it kind of didn't really have anything else to it. I preferred if it went a little bit further, a little bit deeper, but unfortunately it didn't. However, the biggest issue I have with this film is the pacing. It was very inconsistent in terms of the pacing, especially in the second act. Sometimes it was interesting and engaging and you were locked into the story, but then the other times it got quite slow and kind of dragged a bit. Especially in the second act, like I said, it was very kind of on and off and in and out in terms of the pacing. Like, sometimes it would be moving well at a good pace, and sometimes it would just suddenly stall and get quite slow. And I think that really affected the film because it felt a lot longer than it actually was. Like, I don't think this was a long film, but it felt a lot longer, and when a film feels much longer than it actually is, that's never a good thing. Overall, Swallows and Amazons may not be a great film, but it does what it says in the tin, and it is perfectly fine as a throwback to the classic children's films of the 50s. With believable performances, a simplistic story, and wonderful cinematography, but bogged down by a lack of depth to the story and inconsistent pacing throughout. Swallows and Amazons is a perfectly adequate children's film that I think the majority of people will enjoy. I'm going to give Swallows and Amazons 3 stars. It was an adequate film. It wasn't as great as I think it maybe could have been. Although that being said, I overheard some kids talking outside the cinema who were fans of the book and read the book, and they were like, oh, it was better than the book. So if fans of the book really liked it and thought it was better than the book, I suppose it is worth checking out. So I would recommend it. And like I said, although it wasn't anything groundbreaking, I think it did what it needed to do and it was sufficient. And there we go, that wraps up my review for Swallows and Amazons. Have you seen the film yet? And if so, what did you think about it? Let me know down below. And also, what's your favourite kind of like children's film? A film where kind of like a group of kids go off on some kind of adventure? Let me know down below, I'd love to know. And if you like this, make sure to click subscribe to see more. But for now, I've been David O'Sullivan. I'll see you next time.